The Green Heritage Homes project is here to help you make your listed building more energy efficient. It is possible to improve energy efficiency whilst protecting our beautiful listed buildings. The key is to understand the historic significance of your building. In this video, heritage professionals will explain how.
My name is Joanna Robinson and I am the Design, Conservation and Sustainability Manager at Bath Preservation Trust. It's important to retrofit Bath listed buildings because these buildings need a future. They need to be resilient, they need to be able to adapt to a changing climate, they need to be able to be lived in, they need to be able to be warm in the winter, cool in the summer, they need to be well ventilated, and they need to be able to change with the change that we have ahead of us. You've got lots of applications coming in, more than ever, more listed building consent than ever for energy efficiency retrofit, and that's really positive. A central part of the listed building consent process is a heritage assessment. This is a description and an understanding of what's special about a listed building. The level of heritage assessment should be proportionate to the scope of work and the significance, the special interest of the building. For relatively minor works and where there are less complex interventions, a heritage assessment can be undertaken by the homeowner. For more complex listed buildings, where there are layers of history or more complex interventions that are being proposed, we would recommend using a heritage consultant.
I'm Sasha Hunter and I'm a Senior Historic Buildings Consultant at Cotswold Archaeology. I've got an absolute fascination and passion for historic buildings and historic landscapes and townscapes, places generally. So the role of a heritage consultant is to research and understand your building and to be able to identify special features, special fabric and general significance in relation to your building in order to guide sensitive change. So the first task in a heritage assessment is to understand the history and context of the building that you're researching. And we do that through going to archives, for example, looking at online sources, Historic England, Historic Environment Record, looking at grey literature, publications, online mapping, all sorts of, we've got loads of avenues of sources to research buildings. Second task is then to do a building survey, a building assessment, so it's a site visit essentially, and then you would inspect the building, go round the building, try and understand its special features, its fabric, its plan form, its circulation, historic uses, and very importantly, phases of change as well, because understanding, the ages of the interventions that you're looking at helps you understand how significant or not they might be. So the difference between a heritage assessment and a heritage impact assessment is basically how far you go with the assessment. So a heritage assessment is your understanding of the building, it's your statement of significance, and it informs the design of your proposals. A heritage impact assessment incorporates everything that's in a heritage assessment, but it includes an assessment of the effects of the proposed scheme, and that assessment of effects is what informs the planning balance and the planning decision. So the benefit of a heritage impact assessment is that it basically helps streamline and inform the planning process that you'll be going through. It can really inform the conservation officer and the planning officer as to how they might make the decisions relating to your proposals. So you're providing really solid, detailed evidence, which means that they don't have to go and find detailed, solid evidence or justification for your application. It doesn't necessarily mean that your proposals will be approved, but what it does mean is that you're providing as much understanding and information as possible, and it's just really helpful in terms of gaining consent.
When you are assessing heritage value, the key concept is historic significance.
We use an expression of values for significance, so it's evidential, or sometimes called archaeological value, which is the value that's inherent in the fabric, the craftsmanship, the building itself physically. And then there's architectural or aesthetic value, which is its beauty or its appearance, how the person that views it responds to it. And then there's historic value, which has sort of two subsections: associative value, which is the building's association maybe with notable people or events that are happening, and then illustrative in the way that it can illustrate past events and past past lives, as it were. And then the fourth value is communal, which is sometimes less used or less referred to, but that relates to how people kind of engage with somewhere spiritually and commemoratively or communally, basically. So in terms of this building, it obviously has historic value. It's part of the planned Georgian upper town developments of the late 18th century. It's part of a set piece composition by John Palmer, and so it tells us something of the history of Bath and its townscape. The fact that it was affected by the Blitz is also a part of its history that you can narrate. Obviously, we know the building was bombed and quite substantially destroyed in the Blitz, in the Bath Blitz. So we know that in the fabric and the bones and the fabric and the material of this building, there is less value because it's not historic fabric, it's not 18th or 19th century fabric, it's 20th century fabric. So we know that the evidential value is lower. And then obviously probably the primary value that's within the significance of this building is actually its aesthetic value. Its own classical detailing proportions individually as a building, but then also its contribution to this lovely serpentine street within a beautiful set piece within Bath. We know that the fabric of the windows in this building have a lower value or potentially no value evidentially because they are replacements. Because the appearance of the building, the character is so important that if we replace like for like timber sashes with the double glazing as a thermal improvement, that we're not meaningfully, discernibly going to change the appearance of the windows to the street scene, which means that its character is preserved, which means that there is no harm to significance from this particular element of any proposals. But generally speaking, the more you understand, the more you can guide sensitive change.
So, by learning about the history of your building, you can also learn how to make it more energy efficient in a way that protects and cares for it so it lasts for another few hundred years. Please see our website for information and more videos.